every veteran, there is a story about a calling to serve, to fight for the freedoms of the American people. And every story has a struggle, a sacrifice, and invisible wounds. Warrior Watts programs help veterans recover from PTSD and invisible wounds through exercise, nutrition, and connecting with other veteran leaders. It is estimated that 22 veterans die each day by suicide, and another 30 veterans die each day by substance abuse. These are preventable deaths. Warrior Watt is committed to fighting PTSD through fitness, nutrition, and community. Got the privilege and opportunity to support our heroes in their time of need. Will you join us and take action?
In October 2019, Arlington, Texas was chosen to be the home of a new national museum, unlike any other. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a unique home of military history. The 100,000 square foot museum will house exhibits, archives, and artifacts relating to the 3,500 U.S. troops who have been awarded the medal, the nation's highest honor for valor in combat. The museum will have 31,000 square feet of galleries dedicated to U.S. troops who have received the award. The museum CEO, former Navy SEAL and NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, said the museum will focus on education as much as preservation. The building will have 5 areas dedicated to Medal of Honor winners from the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. The main gallery will be located in a central plaza under a 25,000 square foot slab of steel, which will appear to be suspended in midair. It will be supported by 5 pillars. Black Rifle Coffee is a corporate sponsor of the museum, as are the Dallas Cowboys. The museum's board also includes over a dozen major corporations and 6 Medal of Honor recipients, including David Bellavia, Patrick Brady, and Britt Slabinski. Army Staff Sergeant Bellavia was awarded the medal for clearing an entire house by himself on November 10, 2004, as a squad leader in support of Operation Phantom Fury in Fallujah, Iraq. He killed 4 enemy fighters and wounded a 5th in close quarters battle. Army Major General Brady flew and coordinated the evacuation of 51 seriously wounded men during a firefight in Vietnam in January 1968. Slabinski, a Navy SEAL chief and team leader, led a rescue team of SEALs during Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan in March 2002. Slabinski and his team flew to a mountaintop ambush site to rescue Petty Officer First Class Neil Roberts, who had fallen from the back of a helicopter. Slabinski led the team through almost constant combat against an entrenched Taliban force. Along with the board members, former presidents Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama serve as honorary directors. The museum is expected to open to the public in late 2024.
All right. Welcome back.
MisFitNation, the MisFitNation show.
We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their stories to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the MisFitNation. If you're a musician or an actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share your tips with the MisFitNation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you are a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and show how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and share your story with the MisFitNation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or feel embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are a new listener, welcome to the Misfit Nation
Show.
Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast app. Also on our YouTube channel at @the_MisfitNation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date on our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show!
All right. We are live. It's Sunday, and we're back with the Misfit Nation show. Thanks for joining us tonight. I know you can be doing many other things, but tonight you're here with us, and we appreciate you. As you know, the Misfit Nation started November with the thankful challenge, thankfulness challenge, thankful challenge, gratitude challenge, whichever way makes you feel better about talking about it. And each day we're posting a 60-second video on all of our social medias. So check them out. And tonight we're going to show you one tonight with Nivian Maite Pickett, former Martinez, my former soldier, part of my family now, great human being and still doing great things for our country, a senior leader in the Maryland National Guard now, mom of 2. She's a loving family member. She has 2 dogs. She's a fitness fanatic and a foodie. So check her out here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nivian Pickett, and I am a first sergeant with the Maryland Army National Guard Recruiting and Retention. I am here to tell you what I'm grateful for. And while I'm grateful for many things, I am most grateful for my health and the health of my family. I am so thankful that I'm able to move my body, that I'm able to get up in the morning, I'm able to get out of that door and still run around. That's very important to me. So I'm just grateful to God that I'm still able to do that without pain. And the health of my mom. I lost my dad a few years ago, and not being able to talk to him, there are days that is really hard. But still having my mom around and being able to pick up the phone and call her is something that I'm grateful for every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Nivian, and it's awesome to have you come back and jump on the show with us. Tonight, you also notice I did not mention anything about losing any first responders. I think it's now a week that we've gone without having to update our board and say we'll keep you in your thoughts and prayers. So big kudos to everyone out there that's keeping the streets safe and being able to come home at night. Tonight, we have a great guest. He's a distinguished psychiatrist, mental health advocate, and innovative thinker with over 40 years of experience in the field. He's the creator of Welcome to Humanity and the True Voice course. He empowers individuals to discover and express their true selves. He's also the author of Creative 8, Healing Through Creativity and Self-Expression. So without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Fred Moss to the Misfit Nation show. Welcome, Dr. Fred.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you for having me on. I'm very, very excited about our conversation. I love that intro, by the way. That was really solid. And I love your show and what you're all about. So thanks for having me on. I feel very honored.
Awesome. It's great to have you here. And we apologize for not being able to meet you at the earlier time. I know you're probably busy, and it's awesome to have you here. And thank you for being flexible with us.
Of course.
I gave basically a 2-sentence introduction on you there, Dr. Fred. You have 40 years of experience in this field, a field that's very important to the Misfit Nation and all of our listeners. Please throw out more about you from as far back as you want to go to how we got here.
Well, let's go back to that first day when I was born, because I was born into a family with chaos and disarray all over it. So there was a lot of disruption, and there was a lot of conflict. I had 2 brothers, 10 and 14 years older than me. And then I also had my parents. And what I heard was that the purpose of my arrival, the whole point of me coming into that family, was to bring love and joy and connection and to bring healing and repair to the family structure. You see, it turns out that things were really falling apart. And my brothers now tell me, they're still with us, thank goodness. They tell me I did a pretty good job, at least for the first couple of years. I don't think they'd say I did a great job for 60 years, but I did a good job for the first couple of years, bringing joy and peace and happiness and fun and, laughter to the family. I was a bundle of joy, just like I was supposed to be. So I was a healer right from that very time. And, they taught me a lot. My brothers taught me a lot. My parents taught me a lot. They call myself precocious, wouldn't even be really stepping into what I really had in mind. Because by the time I got to kindergarten, I knew how to do math, simple math. I knew how to read. I knew how to write. I knew a little bit about sex and drugs and rock and roll. I, in fact, knew a little bit about war. And I knew a little bit about what it meant to even be a soldier, because back in the day, that was some of the real concerns for my brothers, with the upcoming lottery and the Vietnam War and those kind of things. Very important. And, I watched the lottery, and I remember just waiting for those birthdays to come by, waiting for the numbers to come by, and being very concerned about my brothers going over to Vietnam, which neither of them did. But nevertheless, there I was in school, and I realized that what I really wanted to do, like where the action was, where all the healing was in the world of communication. I knew that when I was a kid. I know that now more than ever. Like, that's all that really matters. In the end, the number one most potent medicine that humanity has ever created is a human connection, after all. And I think I kind of knew that it was something I wanted to learn how to do when I was a kid, but I thought I would learn it in school, right? I thought that was school. What was school going to teach me if it wasn't how to communicate? And as it turns out, in school, they told me to sit down and be quiet and do what the teacher says, and don't even think of open discourse or having any conversation about what it is I've thought about things. So that was kind of like, disappointing. And I was hoping, well, maybe if I got older, it's because the old kids seemed like they knew how to communicate, it would get better. But it actually got worse in junior high and then worse again in high school. So I really got that the point of school was to sit down, be quiet, and do what the teacher says. And that's the furthest thing from creating communication and connection. Now, back in the day, we're talking about 1976 at this point. And I'll move us forward fairly quickly. But what happened was, they had really cool helmets, and it looked like a really cool college. And I've been really wanting to go there my whole life, because it was bred into me. So I got into the University of Michigan, and I went to the University of Michigan for a year and a half. I studied being an engineer. I didn't even know what an engineer was, actually. I just got in because of my math scores. I thought it might be the dude on the back of a train or something. What's an engineer? I don't know. And so after about a year and a half, I decided I would drop out and that it wasn't going to work for me to be in school. And I dropped out, got on a Greyhound bus, and took it all the way from Detroit to Berkeley, California, where I could learn and maybe really figure out what my life was. And I had a great summer in Berkeley. And, my family then called me and told me that I needed to get a job, like we had to do something. This wasn't sustainable. So there was this new industry that was coming to be real. And they thought I would be good at it. They thought I had the aptitude. You might have heard of this industry by now. The industry is called computers. And at the time, it was like, yeah, I could do computers. I got all the math skills. I got all the smarts, and I can stay still, and I can do stuff. And so, that's what ended up happening. I ended up doing a lot of Fortran and COBOL and punch cards and batch jobs, and staying in the only computer that was even in Michigan, a two acre like compound that was called the University of Michigan Computer. And I did that for a little while, but I could tell fairly quickly that wasn't going to be my life either. So I decided to drop out a second time. And this time told my family I'm never going back for any reason. So again, they're back to getting me a job. That's how moms will be. And so they got me a job as they got me an application, civil service application, to be a child care worker at a state mental health facility for adolescent boys. And I was really scared to take that job. I didn't know how tough those kids were. I kind of knew that I wasn't tough enough to deal with them. And, how was I going to do a job like this? So I decided I would stay only long enough to be in orientation. See, they were paying me like, the full salary to sit there for 3 weeks. And I could doodle and hang around orientation for 3 weeks, get 3 paychecks, buy myself a car, and then travel around the country and figure out what my life was about. Of course, that didn't work exactly like that, because in the 4th week, my friend Paul, also orienting with me, convinced me that it would be a good idea to go check out the floors. And up to the floors we went on that 4th Monday. So remember it like it was yesterday. I was terrified, and there I was on Meadowview. And, doing pretty well, and finally realizing that what was called for here was communication. Like, it was the first time where communication and connection was actually like usable, and I could get paid to use it. So when I connected with these so-called kids who were only like 6 years younger than me, and really connected to them as if they were humans and not like troubled souls and not like, something wrong with them or psychiatric patients, not at all. Just like they were humans kind of bumbling and tumbling through the world like me, then healing would take place, not only over there with them, but with me. And I really began to love that job. I began to really love the afternoon shift. I began to really love taking these kids to different, field trips all over Detroit area, Greenfield Village, the Pontiac Silverdome. We'd go see the Pistons, go see the Lions, go see the Tigers in Tiger Stadium. It was back before Co-America. We really had a great time. And I eventually decided that I wasn't going to do that job the rest of my life either. It just wasn't, I had too much going on to think that that's where I should stop my climb. So I went back to school a third time in order to become a doctor because I hated the direction that psychiatry was taking. That's right. I went back to become a doctor because I hated the way doctorness was happening. You see, psychiatry was now working with this idea that we would call the psychiatrist when Timmy and Tony got into a fight, or if Jimmy was up too late, he'd come down and talk to the kid for a couple minutes and then maybe talk to us for like 1 extra minute. Then he'd go into the nursing station and write some kind of note. And then we'd have to go retrieve Jimmy and hold him down in the quiet room and pull down his little sweatpants past his hip and jam him full of some injectable, sedative cocktail. And if he was in a stupor for the next day, we'd have to actually chart that was a success story. And I found that to be so barbaric. And in fact, by the way, I think you know it, but not everyone, that's still going on in all the hospitals all over the country. That's not old scale news. That's not news from 40 years ago. That's news from this morning. That's still happening all over the United States. But I couldn't accept it as a good way to treat these wonderful people that I called my clients or my patients. So I went back with the hope of bringing communication into the whole picture. And I finally did graduate, this time from Wayne State University in Detroit. And then I got accepted to medical school and went to the beautiful medical school in downtown Chicago called Northwestern University. And then I had then I had my residency, and then I had my fellowship in child and adolescent psychiatry, basically staying in the child and adolescent realm, but also getting patient load from all different demographics, all the way from 2 to 102, from geriatrics to prisons and jails, inpatients, outpatients, orphanages, nursing homes, Suboxone clinics, methadone clinics, rehab centers, partial hospital programs, mental health clinics, you name it. I've had leadership roles all over the United States. And I mean it all over the United States because for 10 years, I was a traveling doctor in all those different areas. I'd be called on to fill in for a doctor that was missing for some reason. Maybe he was sick, maybe he had died, maybe he got fired, maybe he quit, whatever. There was an open spot for me to take, and I would take it as a traveling doctor. Then I took my act all around the world. And same doctor job. I was a doctor in Thailand, in Bhutan, in Nepal, in Israel, in France, and Italy, and England, most of the time doing telepsych back into the US. And the thing I was really asking myself, as you can finally hear now, is what's the point? Why do people come to a psychiatrist anyways? What's really going to help them? What makes people think that coming to a psychiatrist is a good idea? And ultimately, all I could think of is what I knew was a real cure. What I knew was real healing. And that came in the essence of a human connection. So my practice for the last 16 years, or the last 18 years, actually, my second half of my career, has been really focusing on how to get the practice of communication, connection, and conversation and self-expression in such a way that it heals naturally. See, when we connect together naturally as two human beings, healing takes place at that instant with no additional need, no additional effort, no additional tools needed. All we have to do is connect as a human. But in order to do that, I have to connect with my own humanity. I got to stop pretending to be someone I'm not in order to protect the person that I am. And then I also have to express myself open, honestly, and authentically. And so do you. And if I can do it, I normally create a space for you to do it too. You see the attraction of not having to worry about what it is you have to say. Most people who pretend to be somebody that they're not, they're kind of afraid that you're going to distract or disrupt or just, somehow cause some damage in the conversation. So they end up either not saying what they know they should say, or in even worst case scenario, actually saying something that they don't even believe. This is absurd. When you start saying stuff that even you don't believe, you have crossed over an important line at that point. like you are really seriously not only lying to everybody else, but now you're actually lying and getting away with lying to yourself, which is most amazing. It really is, especially since it doesn't work. It's absurd, it's ludicrous, it's preposterous, and it's ineffective. So what I help people do is find their self-expression. My 2 books were about that, Healing Through Creativity and Self-Expression, The Creative 8. And also my second book, which is called Find Your True Voice, as is my True Voice course. And really what I'm helping people do is move the things out of the way that are in the way of open and honest communication. I'm just a proponent all the way to my bone, and even maybe directly to my bone marrow, right to my soul, that communication, human connection, and conversation, powerful conversation, is really where the action is. That's really where the money gets paid. That's really where healing takes place, and essentially nowhere else. So what do I mean by that? I see that you've labeled me as the undoctor. That's fine. That's what I am. And as the undoctor, what I do is I help people see that there was nothing wrong with them in the first place. Like really, like it's okay that they were miserable. It's okay that they were in pain. It's okay that they were sad or scared or depressed or awkward or distracted or confused. All those things, they're okay. They're called humanity. They really are called humanity. And just because you think there's something wrong with you because you're in so much pain, and you can get agreement from a clinician that there's something wrong with you, still does not confirm that there's anything wrong with you. We don't blame a log for burning in a fire, right? A log goes in a fire, it burns. That's what happens. It's right. It's fine. You live in this world, you're going to have days and moments in time where you're deeply anxious, where you're deeply depressed, where you're deeply afraid, where you're essentially terrified, where you're totally confused, you're totally awkward, you're totally distracted. That's called the human condition. It's been written about for thousands of years. So if we can get to the place where there's nothing wrong with us, then maybe we can get to a place where we won't have to fix ourselves. So we undiagnose and then unmedicate, and in that process, undoctrinate, meaning separate people from the conventional psychiatric system altogether. I see it as my job to work myself out of a job, like back in the Maytag days, like that guy. But, in most of psychiatry is built to perpetuate the symptoms it's marketed to treat. And although that is my specialty, I indeed am a psychiatrist. That is not where the action is. The action comes when I can teach you or open the space for you to learn skill sets that can work even when you're in complete discomfort, complete unpleasurable pain. And even if you're that way, just having you get maybe, just maybe, that there was nothing wrong with you in the first place. That's an important place we have to go if we're going to get to the undoctor. So that's what I represent. That's who I am today. I still, medicate people every so often. People come in, they say they got this X, Y, or Z condition. Someone gave it to them and they're already taking medicine. And they're like, the last thing they want to do is come off their medicine. So they should see me. I'm a specialist. I've written over 100,000 prescriptions in my life, even though most of them were soul sacrifice. They should allow me to prescribe the medicine because this is my specialty. And they should hear how important communication, connection, and, genuine conversation and keeping yourself clean, in other words, gratitude, meditation, nutrition, being of service, being, spirituality, being creative, being hydrated, taking care of your pets, having authentic conversations. There are 20 things in the Moss method, that list, that I tell people to do so that you can get in a practice of doing more good things and doing less bad things, and then keeping this self of yours as detox as possible in this remarkably toxic world that we're living in to this very day. Oh, you're on mute.
Definitely, and that's a great introduction to everything about you. And last week, I finished the book Out of the Pocket by Kirk Herbstreit. And, he was talking about when he was in Ohio State as a football player in the 80s. And, in the 80s, you were just supposed to play football and be that man and play football and not worry about anything on that, any voices that are in your head, any noise that was in your outside. And finally, Ohio State brought in a sports psychologist, and he sat with him and they had a human connection like you talked about. He was able to speak to him and the doctor listened to him, and that got him out of his own head and got him out of his own way and made him much better on the field, but even more important, made him a better man than what he is today as a sports analyst.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great.
That resonated with me as I was looking forward to talking to you tonight. I said, what you talk about in your bio and on your website, I said that has to be the same mantra that you thought of, that you do, that his doctor was doing as well, that helped him and all his teammates get out of their own way and get out of that box they were putting themselves into, that they had to just play football, do this, do this, do this, because that's what the world tells you to do. And maybe there's a better way to do it.
Right. Exactly. That's right. And it would behoove me to not mention, your last name of LaMonica when talking about 80s football. So thank you for letting me do that as well.
Yeah, go ahead. Mad Bomber. Thank you. Outstanding. I wish we were related, but that really resonated with me. And a lot of our veterans and first responders that listen to the show, when they go into maybe seek help or seek care, the first you talked about getting people off medicine.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that's thrown at us now.
Yeah.
For a while, that's the easy button. That's like going.
Well, it may be easy, but here it's something your listeners need to hear. And I'm going to give you a big disclaimer, which I might say 2 or 3 times during this talk, because we have an important crew that's listening to this broadcast. If you've reached a point where you're sure that you wouldn't want to change the way things are going for you at even 1 iota, like you have the right treatment plan, you have the right therapist, you have the right medications, you have the right diagnosis, you're pretty sure that all those things are right, and you wouldn't trade it, and you don't think that medicines are causing you any trouble at all, then by all means, please keep doing what you're doing. 1,000,000%, absolutely, with no argument at all from me. Meaning, if you've gotten to that point any time in any place of your life, if you've gotten to the point where you wouldn't trade where you are for anything, any kind of upgrade possibility, then you should stay exactly where you are, because that's an extremely rare experience inside of this life of ours. Now, but for the hundreds of millions, and literally we are talking about hundreds of millions of people who aren't that, who've been touched in some way by the conventional psychiatric system, who have learned that they're being either mistreated, undertreated, overtreated, misdiagnosed, underdiagnosed, overdiagnosed, like somehow not getting the life that they thought they deserved. This is for them. So we start looking at what is really possible, because these medicines, you can call them easy. And if in fact, all they were doing was being a Band-Aid, or if all they were doing was like helping you with not going to the core values, I could actually vote for them. I would actually do that. But that's not what these medicines do. These medicines are just like a Band-Aid with a razor blade embedded in it. See, if you didn't know a razor blade was embedded in your Band-Aid and you put it over your cut, it would work for a short period of time. And then blood would ooze out of the cut, and blood would ooze off the sides of the Band-Aid. And then you'd be left with the idea that your cut had gotten worse, because you wouldn't dare blame the Band-Aid.
Right.
And when your cut got worse, you'd only be able to do one of 3 things: add, increase, or change, which are the 3 things us doctors have been trained to do. In other words, you could add another Band-Aid, you could increase the size of the present Band-Aid, or we could change to a different type of Band-Aid altogether. Who knows? Gauze, or who knows? If all of them also have razor blades embedded in it, the same thing's going to hold true. So if these medicines were simply benign or neutral, I could actually vote for them, Rich. I wouldn't have that much problem with them. But the fact is that they actually cause frequently the symptoms they're marketed to treat. They increase, they perpetuate, and they induce the symptoms they're marketed to treat. So because of that, we have to really look at what are some alternatives? Because if that's true, some people like a very common second visit complaint, when people come in the second time, is, "Doc, the meds worked and I'm worse." It's like, what does that even mean? How could the meds work and you'd be worse? And the reason they say that is because for a short period of time, just like a Band-Aid with a razor blade in it, it works. And you'd register, "Oh yeah, this Band-Aid is great. It covered my cut." And then it gets worse, but you forget that the medicine's not working. And so the medicine and the diagnosis, which are generally fairly arbitrary, to be honest, the diagnoses that is, actually are built to create a perpetual client. And the medicines are built to have you take medicine for the rest of your life. Most doctors do not have any idea how to take someone off of medicine. Then people think that they know how, so they think they have to wean or something like that. They come up with whatever style they think fits them. They're afraid to come off. It's funny. Isn't it really funny that people are more afraid to come off medicine than they are to come on medicine? What the hell?
What happened? Yeah.
What is that? You're okay about putting toxins made in a laboratory in a high rise to make billions of dollars for a particular company. You're okay to start eating that, and you're not okay to stop eating that? Like, it's so interesting what us humans are. And in psychiatry, we have a special little niche. Like, in psychiatry, it might be the only subspecialty out there that when I tell somebody that they're okay, they actually get angry.
Wow.
It's like, right? All the other fields, if an oncologist or an orthopedist or an ophthalmologist tells you you're okay, you're like, cool, that's great. Thank you. But when a doctor of psychiatry tells you you're okay, you just think you didn't get it, because you didn't come in to find out if there was something wrong with you. You came in to find out what was wrong with you, because you were already pretty sure there was something wrong with you, just because you were feeling so miserable in this very challenging world. It is okay to be very, very, very miserable in this challenging world. That doesn't make anything wrong with you. It's not like it's a goal. I'm not hoping misery on you, but misery is coming. Misery is here, and there's loads and loads, just backlog of reasons to be miserable. You can choose misery, and then you can keep it as your way of being, or you can learn some of the things that we're talking about here in the form of cleaning and rehabilitation and actually, true and honest rehabilitation. And actually some of the traits inside the Moss method or inside of True Voice technology or inside of Welcome to Humanity that really show you how to step up and take hold of your life and to own your life from the beginning of the day all the way through. Indeed, fighting back the impulse to become very uncomfortable. Like, have you been uncomfortable today ever? How about so far today? Have you been uncomfortable? My answer is definitely yes. I don't know about you. Yeah, because a day doesn't go by where there's not at least a point where it's highly uncomfortable.
Yeah. Situation based. Yeah.
It's just the way it's just the way life is. And it's not any worse now than it was thousands of years ago. If you look at the writers from thousands of years ago, they were talking the same stuff, man. It was not that much easier to be alive 3,000 years ago than it is to be alive today, after all.
Yeah, I think the only difference now is the advances in technology and things in your face so much now that compared to 3,000 years ago, definitely. And you just said a lot of great things about the mental illness and treating of it and medication of it. How does someone know if they are actually mentally ill?
Mm-hmm. Great question. I have several answers for this question that have been loaded before, so I'm trying to think which one to bring to you and your listeners. So maybe they're not.
Okay.
That's like the first answer. Just because you think you're mentally ill doesn't, just because there's a word called schizophrenia doesn't mean that you have it. Sometimes your thoughts race, or sometimes you hear something in your head and you think it's your intuition or your, clairvoyance, or who knows, like some sort of command. Like, you can hear voices in your head. If you don't think you got voices in your head, try to spend the next few seconds not listening to them.
Okay.
That voice that's going on right now saying, I don't have voices. I don't know what he's talking about. That's a voice.
Right. It definitely is.
It definitely is. And so if we're willing to go into an emergency room and say, I have voices, then you will guarantee get a diagnosis that moment. And more than likely, you'll be admitted to the hospital. And then more than likely, you'll be some version of Jimmy where they're holding you down and jamming medicines, either you're voluntarily or involuntarily, into your system, which then gives you the actual problem that you thought you had in the first place. So that's very interesting, right? Like, these medicines actually cause the symptoms they're marketed to treat. That's really cool. It's a great business model. It's awesome. I wish I would have designed it. I'm just not at the helm of it, and it does work when you can create a product that has the, the purchaser actually needing to buy the product when they're done using it. It's a pretty great product. Pretty fantastic business model. And if that truly was the business model, you would expect there to be billions of dollars per day in profit margin in this industry. Oh, there is. How interesting.
That's strange.
You see, there's no other industry that has billions of dollars a day in profit margin that's legitimate anywhere in the world.
Right.
You can't have billions of dollars a day profit margin and be legitimate. It's not mathematically possible. So that's what they have going on. And the reason they have that going on is they have created an item that people think is going to help them, because people think because I'm miserable, I should go see a psychiatrist. Because I'm depressed, I'm afraid, I'm anxious, I'm nervous, I'm awkward, I'm distracted, I'm having trouble sleeping, I'm having trouble focusing, I'm mean to my kids, I'm angry with my wife, I don't like my job, I lose my keys too often. Whatever your deal is, you think coming to a psychiatrist is a good idea to deal with that. I'm not so sure that that's the best idea of how to deal with it, unless you do want to, come to me and we could talk about refocusing or recontextualizing your life and giving you things that actually you can focus on to, counteract, the misery that often comes with life. Mitigate it.
That's a great answer to that question. And I hope the audience is listening, because this is stuff that we don't often hear. We don't often hear truthfulness from when we go to a doctor.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah,
I hear you, but do you just hear what you just said?
Yeah. It's crazy.
We don't often hear truthfulness when we go to a doctor. How freaking silly is that, Rich?
It's insane. I don't want to say insane, but it's crazy. Yes.
It is.
And I know for me, starting this show was really helpful in me in my journey to finding that inner peace and finding that joy and finding the things that I lost along the way through being in the military and going to war so many times and seeing so many bad things. And I attribute this to creativity.
Mm-hmm.
So do you believe creativity and maybe someone doing arts or self-expression, does that help them in their healing as well? Or am I just this crazy?
No, not at all, Rich. You know what I'm going to say here. My first book is called The Creative 8 and Healing Through Creativity and Self-Expression. It focuses all on the power of creativity. It's also in the middle of the Moss Method. It's number 10 of 20. And it's all about creativity. So look, we were put here to be really, really creative. And by the way, anyone who thinks that they're not creative is lying to themselves, because if you're still living and you're taking another blink right now, you had to be very, 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 very creative to get right here, right now. You have to actually juggle so many balls and spin so many plates and decide what you're going to do when, and sometimes you're going to make mistakes and do the wrong thing, or sometimes you're going to do something that hurts yourself or hurt others. That's part of the human experience. But you've had to be very creative. So when we look at the Creative 8, we look at art, music, dancing, singing, drama, cooking, writing, gardening. I include podcasting and drama, by the way. And you look at those 8 things and you look at when you're doing those things, whatever uncomfortable symptoms you thought you had tend to disappear. They at least reduce significantly while you're involved in making art, performing art, or visual arts or any kind of art. So what I've noticed is when you do that, and that, let's say it's art. I'm saying you don't have to pull out a whole palette with watercolors to get that done. You can actually trace, and that's called art. Or you can actually doodle. That's called art. Same thing with music. You don't have to have a drum set. You can actually take a pencil to the side of the table, and that's called music. It's fine. Or dancing. You don't have to have a partner and do the salsa. You can actually just dance like you're doing right there, like you were just doing right there. That's called dancing. And when you do a little bit of this artwork, you are taken off the rails of the discomfort you were having going into that activity. And therefore, when you're done, even if it's only 1 minute later, you then get to choose whether to go back and become the depressed person you were before the art, or the anxious person, or nervous person, afraid person, or go off in a different direction. You see, one of the most beautiful things about being human is that any given second, you can go in any direction you want.
Yep.
Having nothing to do with the past that brought you to here. Like, do I respect your years in combat? Do I? 1,000,000%. And thank you. And thank you to everyone here who went to combat. Most of us civilians, I did not. I never got drafted. In fact, I was in this 3-year period, the only 3-year period in the history of the United States, as a matter of fact. You had to be born in 1958 to have this happen, where not only did I never get drafted, I was never registered for the draft. There was only 3 years where that was the case. And that was from 1976 to 1979. I can explain that in another version, but I was never registered. So people born in 1958 never got registered for the draft. I'm just telling you. They switched the laws. They switched the laws in 1976 so that we didn't have to be. And then when they switched it back, they grandfathered us in so that we couldn't get registered. And that's how that went. So look, I deeply respect the trauma and, all the, like, the calamities, the tragedies, the experiences that you had that were, I worked in the VA. I worked in Westside VA in Chicago, and I worked in the VA in Cincinnati as well. And my relationship with the vets is, it's with veterans, people who have been over there, who have risked their lives, who have worked in battalions, who have worked with, for and around and through their friends, who have dealt with the just ridiculous chaos of war, and all the, like, trials and tribulations and memories that have come back with this group, whether we call it, post-traumatic stress disorder or whatever you want to call it. These are just significant experiences and can be reduced. But my suggestion is that medicine is not the best way to do it. Yeah.
And that's definitely my approach is not medicine at all. And when they tried to give it to me at the VA, they mailed it to me without telling me they were prescribing it.
Oh my God.
I brought it to the police station and just turned it into the amnesty box because I wasn't going to take it. After I seen what the people looked like in the VA when I was walking in, they looked like zombies walking around. I said, this is not what I want. I want to be able to know who I am and know what I'm doing and be able to feel. So I turned that stuff in, and I did different steps along the way. And of course, the podcast has helped a lot.
Exactly. Yeah, that's fabulous. I'm so glad that you're doing that. Yeah, shell shock. We have, I'm looking at some of the names: shell shock, soldier's heart, battle fatigue, Vietnam syndrome, war neurosis, and there are many others. This PTSD was only added as a diagnosis while I was in residency in 1980. So yeah.
So in 1980, it was added as a diagnosis, and
it was added as a diagnosis in 1980. I guess that wasn't when I was in residency. It was years before my residency, just being honest about this. But I did write an article along with Jacob Lindy about post-traumatic stress disorder and its form of shell shock. And we started looking at what really is happening here. And, what happens is we have an unresolved experience. Who knows? You're responsible for, putting the lights out on a village or something. And, right. That's classic experience. And then you deal with the trauma that you've done that level of damage. You can barely live with yourself, the blame and shame and guilt that you have with all of that. And it just tends to, like, seep into your entire life. Through talking with someone, through actually getting someone to understand you, to be with you, to clearly get you, and to communicate effectively with you in their speaking and their listening, and without judging, without actually, without exactly evaluating or thinking that there's something wrong with you, it's possible to get through the post-traumatic stress disorder symptom complex way without taking medicine. I believe that the medicines used most often for post-traumatic stress disorder tend to freeze the symptoms into you forever.
Definitely. 100%. And I came back in 2004 from my first tour, my second time in combat from 2003, 2004. And when we were going back through reintegration, processing, they told us we weren't back long enough to have PTSD. There's no way we could have those problems. That's what they were telling us. And that just turned us all off to any care we can possibly get at that point, just by them telling us that there's no way we can have it because they don't believe it happens that quick.
Yeah.
So we all just turned it off and went forward in our lives. And that kind of was disheartening to a lot of our brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
We lost a lot at that point through to trying to replace what we've seen over there with maybe adrenaline or drugs or whatever to try to make up for things. And we lost them because we were told we couldn't have it at that point.
Understood. Terrible. Sorry that happened.
And have you ever seen that with any of your colleagues or read any articles of that before?
With being told that it doesn't exist or something like that?
Right. Or it doesn't happen that quick.
It's a service connection protection. Right. Ultimately, no, you can't have it. Because if you had it, we'd have to actually pay you for it. And we're not going to do that. So, if you come back with a service connection based on PTSD, every one of your friends will think they have it too. So we have an answer for you, which is whatever you have, it's not PTSD because PTSD needs more months in order to actually be materialized. And that's just flat out bullshit, to be honest. And look, PTSD doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you either.
Right.
That's what we have to get. You're caught up in something. You're caught up in a neural pathway that sounds and feels habitual. But with good conversation, good communication, good human connection, being heard and allowed to speak and being able to share your primary experience, people hear the bombs or hear the gunshots or hear people screaming or hear people crying, all those experiences that can happen in a full-blown chronic PTSD syndrome. It's like, well, these things can actually be dealt with, no kidding, without the medications. And I know it looks like the medications would be a good idea in most cases, but I do really think that the medications work backwards and frankly freeze the symptoms in for the time that you're taking it.
Definitely. It definitely does. And we've lost way too many people since Quat started. And you can go back to your generation.
Yeah.
Back to the Vietnam vets as they came home and they were told, hey, yeah, that's not service connected because we don't believe it is. And they just went about their lives, most of them, until just recently, a lot of, probably in the last 10, 15 years, they started going to get care and realizing that maybe they had problems that were just undiagnosed and they dealt with it a different way. Maybe they used alcohol, they used drugs, they did whatever, or adrenaline. They did whatever they could to get by.
Yeah.
Decades. And now they're finally coming along, but we lost a lot of them along the way as well.
Yeah, there's way too many people have been lost. And I heard that in your intro as well, this idea of a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And, that's a pretty cool phrase to use. And way too many veterans have been lost. What is it? And many of them to suicide, and so I think it's 22. Is it 1 in 22 vets or something like that? And
22 is the I guess the
number of people.
Line. That's the
number of people who commit suicide daily. Is that what it is?
That's the party line. But if you look into the numbers that were what they accept as a suicide, it's actually around 44 with the numbers that are really true suicide.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, and most of that is not because of their war experiences, because there's nobody here to connect with them.
Right.
It's just an affirmation of what I'm saying. If you can get somebody to connect with you about whatever your traumatic experiences are in life, then it's amazing. It's literally amazing. It's miraculous. It's astonishing how healing can take place once you've been heard.
Yes. And when someone truly listens to you, when you speak about what happened to you, and they're not just trying to get that next word in, they're not trying to one up you or say, oh yeah, I've heard that before, but this is something that happened to this other guy, Jerry down the block, this happened to him. Maybe listen to my whole story and then come up with maybe a response that actually helps me, and that'll help a lot more people.
Exactly. 100%, Rich.
And I'm not a doctor at all. I just
you're right on. You're right on.
So where do you you talked about the Moss method a few times tonight. You talked about number 10, and there's 20 things in there. How did you come up with that? And I'm sure it's through the 40 years of experience. And where can people find that?
So the Moss method, let me see if I can find it really quick here. How did I come up with it? It is just a compilation. I didn't make up anything on the Moss method. I just compiled things that actually work. And I'm going to give you a little look at it right here. It's going to take me just a minute, but the way that I came up with it is these are 20 things that I just determined, and I without having to work too hard, that if people were doing all 20 of these things, they actually would have a life that worked. So when you wake up in the morning and you show gratitude, actually step into your gratitude, right? Like actually being grateful for 10 things in your life and saying it out loud, putting your hand on that heart of yours and saying those things out loud. Like, 10 things. Like I always say my wife, and then I got 3 cats. I got the sun and the moon and a refrigerator and warm clothes and a warm bed and, a free country, for God's sake. We still have that. And, all those things. I have an opportunity with gratitude to step into my day powerfully. The next thing that I say we should do all the time is to, or part of the Moss method anyways, is to step outside in the morning and take a look at the infinite nature of what our experience really is here on Earth. Meaning we like to think that our experience is taking place in 4 walls, right? It's taking place in the 4 walls and or in our head. when in fact our experience is vast and infinite. And we go outside and look at that sky and notice the squirrels and notice the plants, notice the trees, notice the garbage trucks, notice everything that's happening, and get a sense for being able to spread your wings really early. The next thing we talk about here, there is the list of all 20 of them, is meditation and yoga, Tai Chi. So meditation is the third one. I find meditation to be probably the linchpin of all 20 of these. It's amazing the power of just sitting still and silent for 20 minutes has on all human beings. And, coming up with a mantra, a focal point, an attentive point can be very helpful to finally get to the point of equanimity. Equanimity meaning being able to be calm and easy, like being able to be yourself and unfettered, undamageable, like immovable, unpenetrable, like actually having that in place, unshakable. And that's what equanimity is. And meditation gives us a pathway to that. Then we see yoga and Tai Chi. We see breathing exercises. Wim Hof is a breathing exercise that a lot of people use, or box breathing, which the Navy SEALs, I think, have used. Cold showers. I like to take a cold shower every day. I haven't missed a cold shower in 3.5 years. It's a great way to activate yourself and renew things. Organic food, same kind of thing. You want to eat food that's not destroyed. It'd be really good if you could actually eat food that didn't have, genetic modified organisms in it, or didn't have toxins or fertilizers in it. Like, it would be good. It's too bad you have to actually pay more to have less things in your food. Then there's celery juice, and there's water, like drinking, your share of water, half your body weight in water, meaning if you weigh 220, 110 ounces of water a day is the target. Herbal teas as the water alternative. Watching our white powders, processed food, sugars, and of course, cocaine and meth. You want to stay away from those two.
Definitely. Yes.
And creativity, art, music, dancing, singing. We talked about that. Authentic conversations. We talked about that. Sleep, pampering, treating yourself like a king. Sleep hygiene, turning off that computer or that phone an hour and a half before you go to bed. Not eating late into the night. Turning down the lights, playing great music, soft music. Maybe doing like intricate hand-eye coordinating things. That's part of the whole deal. Nature walks, like getting out there in nature and actually walking by the stream or in the field. Or if all you have is your neighborhood, that works. There's enough nature in your neighborhood. Reading real books. Again, really just a great art, way better than staring at the lights of your Kindle. An actual reading, like moving the pages over. And then we look at journaling, pet, spirituality, and service work. And all of those things go into being part of the Moss method. And I'm gonna get you the actual website here in a moment.
Awesome. I post everything you put into the private chat onto the comments so everyone can see it as well.
All right, we put it here and here and here. Here's the link to the Moss method on a website.
Okay, awesome. And there it is. It's posted in the chat, everybody. So you can go there and dive into there and see how those things can help you each day. And we talk about here every day on the Misfit Nation, we talk about stacking victories.
Exactly.
Waking up and start stacking those victories every day, and maybe tomorrow try to beat what you did today.
Even by 1% is plenty.
Even just one item. I mean, every day I wake up, that's a victory for me. I know it's a victory when you wake up. You make your bed, that's 2. Brush your teeth, 3. Don't trip over the dog, that's 4. That's a big one in this house with 4 dogs. And you may have something else you trip over at your house, but count those victories every day. Don't dwell on the thing. You're gonna have shortcomings every day. You're gonna have things that you don't do great every day. Don't dwell on them. Learn from them and move forward.
Right.
And I'm sure that goes right in with everything you just said with the Moss method. I love the Moss method right there.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm sure it took I'm not sure how long it took you to come up with that, but
it got added on here and there. There's some other things that are like thinking about coming in, being in financial, like taking your finances and getting financial literacy, like pursuing financial literacy is very important. And that's a new thing that I'm really helping people get to. There's several things I do can help people actually make money, even if they're not making very much money, and then learn how to shelter it and take care of it and create savings so you can have the time and money and your magic that you deserve in your life. So that's another one. And then laughing is another one as well. I think it should be on this list, but it's not quite there yet.
Laughing and smiling, I think they go together, and I think they both should be on that same list, because if you smile, it makes you feel better. And laughing definitely makes you feel better. And sometimes laughing at yourself makes you feel even more better.
Indeed. Exactly.
We all make mistakes every day. And if you don't make a mistake every day, something might be wrong with you even more, or that you don't.
You're not playing very hard if you're not making a mistake every day.
Or you're not really looking at what you do every day.
That's true.
So, Dr. Fred, how does someone get in contact with you? Maybe if they want to just pick your brain like we were doing tonight, or maybe if they want to learn more about how they can better themselves tomorrow.
Yeah. So, we can give them the site at drfred360.com, at drfred360.com. You can book a discovery call or an open first call with me. I'm not going to pitch you to become a client of mine. More people than not don't become clients. You have to be kind of special to actually be a client. You have to be most cases, the people that I'm looking to work with, like work one-on-one with, are people who have just recently started taking medicines and realize it's not helping them, or people who haven't yet started taking medicines and are just wondering if there's something wrong with them. There's my favorite people, of course. People who are becoming more and more certain that there's something wrong with them because they feel bad every single day. This is a group I can truly connect with. After all, it's really, really okay to feel bad every day. And it's interesting, as soon as you have someone who gets that, then you stop feeling bad every day. That's also true. It's like the cure to feeling bad every day is to have somebody get that you feel bad every day, and then you won't feel bad every day. It's sort of how that really works. So you have an opportunity to fall in love with somebody, or fall in love with communication, falling in love with connection, and falling in love with the healing skill that far exceeds any other healing skills designed by any drug company or insurance agency or doctor's group. And so if you really want to come see me or come talk to me on Zoom, most of my calls are on Zoom at drfred360.com, or my expanded website, which covers the same thing and also has access to discovery calls. It's called welcometohumanity.net. Then I buzz around a little bit on LinkedIn, and I buzz around on Facebook. And then I have this group that I'm leading out of school, which I'm moving now to Mighty Networks. And of course, that's called Welcome to Humanity. So if you go school.com/welcome to humanity/about, you can join that group and be a founding member for life, a free founding member. We have 250 people on that site already, and we're looking for just a few more to call us a founding member, the founding member collaborative. And then we're going to move everything over to Mighty Networks because it's more powerful than school is. So that's what's coming next.
Outstanding. Dr. Fred, this has been awesome chatting with you tonight. It went by quick, because we're almost at an hour now, and you poured out a lot of knowledge to Misfit Nation, and I hope they grasped onto it. And I really love what you're doing, and I really am a proponent for the non-medicine route, of course. I love talking to people and maybe feeling the talk back and forth with another person,
Exactly.
and understanding that they care about you, you care about them, and getting that pressure off your chest, and maybe you live to fight another day, another year, another millennium, another decade. And that's what we're all about. So Dr. Fred, thank you again for taking your time tonight on a Sunday to hang out with us. This is awesome.
Thank you, Rich. It's been great conversation. Thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Have a great night.
All right. You too. Thanks.
Don't forget to vote, everybody. You got 2 days to get your thoughts together and vote for the person you believe is correct for this iteration of the voting, and do the right thing and vote. And that way you can't complain the day after when the person you don't want to come in makes it, or does come in, and whatever makes you angry that day on Wednesday, make sure you vote on Tuesday to make sure the right choices are made. Have a great night, everybody.
This is a message from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Got a question about your VA benefits, healthcare, or eligibility? Go to va.gov, where you can access a new interactive chatbot to ask questions 24/7. One can still browse va.gov for information, but you can now ask specific questions to the chatbot. like what's the PACT Act? How do I apply for disability benefits? What's my claim status? You can access the new feature through va.gov's Contact Us page. Then click on the Start Chat button. The chatbot will continue to improve veterans' access to information about the benefits and services they've earned. This is one way VA is offering seamless and secure access to its online resources.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling because we are
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.